You may or may not know that I've been sober for the past 4 years, and in those 4 years, I've birthed 2 humans, I've survived one pandemic, all the while trying to navigate wine mom culture without wine. What is that, I hear you ask? What is wine mom culture? Let's be really clear. It is not mothers enjoying the odd glass of wine, the odd cocktail.
You can say it to me. I'm a mother too.
Sometimes I go in the other room and I close the door. And I just let her scream. Isn't that awful?
No, that's survival. Take a sip.
I've been looking into this a lot, and the phenomenon of, the hashtag wine mom and the whole culture around that is a lot more insidious, involves a lot of very gendered marketing, and is very much intertwined with the enormous rise of alcohol abuse in women since the early 2000s. And yeah, it's also my biggest trigger right now as a sober person, but we'll get to that. When you become a parent and you start engaging with motherhood content online, you start to see a lot of this.
I have this theory that nobody has a higher alcohol tolerance than a wine mom. Like the kind of white ladies who watch the clock and at 6 p.m. are just going for that Pinot.
What? You're always fucking looking at me, dude. Shut the fuck up because I always catch you staring.
How much do you normally spend on a bottle of wine?
About 30 minutes max.
And as of last week, I am 34 years old now. I do still go on Facebook the odd time, and my Facebook timeline thing is littered with memes like this. The most expensive part of having kids is all the wine you have to drink. Mommy needs a second glass of wine because she didn't have a second abortion. I can't wait for the day I can drink with my kids instead of because of them. Then there's the merch, like they whine, I whine. My mommy drinks because I cry. Glasses that say mommy juice. Mugs that say there may be wine in here. There's even books like Mommy Drinks Wine Because of You, and Facebook groups like Moms Who Need Wine. Yeah, essentially, wine mom culture tells us that to survive parenthood, to cope with our kids, we must drink. The message is that motherhood is a burden that requires self-medicating, and society is offering us the solution to all of the stresses of motherhood and house cleaning and juggling all of the unpaid labour with having to actually earn an income. And that solution is an overpriced bottle of rosé wine. I'm sure we can all agree that relying on a substance to dull your stress is a slippery slope, but I don't think many of us really think about or realise that this solution we're offered is actually just a symptom of a much bigger problem.
Moms are potentially drinking Lord knows how many glasses of wine or beers and then getting in the car driving their kids home.
I drank because that's the only way I knew to cope with uncomfortable feelings.
Experts warn the growing popularity of mommy drinking culture can mask alcohol abuse.
Eventually, I would have lost custody of my daughter. It was inevitable.
When did you first become aware that the whole wine mom thing was a thing? For me, it was this series that BuzzFeed used to run, and I loved it. I used to watch it a few years ago. It was called Wine Mom. The woman in the videos talked about how having wine made her a better mom. When I was watching that Wine Mom series, I was already very much knee deep in like drink culture. The feminization of alcohol marketing had absolutely sucked me in. Like, I was all about getting together with the girlies, having some pink drinks. I even used to make a lot of videos with my sister, and there was nearly always alcohol in those videos. Like, in my head, getting together with friends or female family members meant like, ooh, let's all have a drink and have a little chat and a goss and relax. Girl time, bonding. And I did find the wine mom humour funny. Like, I'd be on Facebook and I'd see posts about, oh, Captain Morgan's here at last to save the day on a Friday. Woohoo! I'd smile to myself and I'd be, thinking, you earned that drink, lady. Go to town. Because my reward system was very much intertwined with alcohol. If I finished a project, I'd be like, yes, I deserve to get a bit drunk today. And I'd be observing mothers being basically like superheroes, juggling an insane amount of things. I was like, I don't know how they do that. They deserve that. No wonder she needs a drink. But yeah, enter the alcohol companies. So like they always target men, always. But in the early 2000s, I think they copped that we usually do the spending of the family money. A lot of it anyway, you know, it would be the mothers going food shopping, it would be the mothers ordering stuff online. I found this article by the BBC and it states that research shows how alcohol companies harness the fact that women want to retain their identities as they go through various life changes. When researchers talked to women in their 30s and 40s, they found that many viewed drinking as a way to show their identity beyond the responsibilities associated with being a woman in midlife. And it goes on to say that mummy wine time started from a good place. Women were seeing mummy influencers making cupcakes and looking like a supermodel. And in response came photos of real mums breastfeeding in public, inside restrooms, at laundromats. But she believes that the real image of motherhood then got coupled with drinking. This professor, her name is Carol, she said you'd have images of bottles of wine in prams, with messages like calm on the outside, Prosecco on the inside. A sentiment that marketers then worked to cash in on. I have so much compassion for the women being preyed on by these companies. I've been an influencer for a decade and I've been on both sides of the whole Insta versus reality train. And when I've experienced it and I've also witnessed it among my like influencer friends, but like when you present the highlights online, you are accused of like your content's fake. When you open up and you share anything raw or real about motherhood, you just receive horrible abuse about everything from your looks to how sloppy you dress to your home and it being messy to your routines. And everyone's just like, stop complaining that you're tired. We get it. You have a child. Wow, you're the first person to ever have a child. So you kind of can't win. And it kind of, like, I understand why people stick to making the cupcakes for their kids and only posting the supermodel-esque pictures. I get it. And I also understand why some influencers make being a wine mom their whole online identity and why they post so much about it, because, like, it gets a lot of engagement because it resonates, because so many people are going through this and, you know, humor connects people. That's the side of this that makes me kind of like, An online mom might not realize she's really glamorizing alcohol and like normalizing drinking to cope by posting herself all dolled up and making jokes about how she can't remember how her baby made it to the crib last night, or that she was, you know, drinking in the middle of the day at her kids' football practice. Maybe, just maybe, she's posting that desperately trying to connect with people, and it's like a cry for help. I am numbing myself out. I am beyond anxious and overwhelmed and burned out. This drug, this wine, it's accessible. It helps me feel better in the moment, but it doesn't help me to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, career woman, homemaker, because it can't, because it's not possible to meet these ridiculous standards that we have for ourselves these days. Maybe she just wants to scream. Why is nobody talking about that? Maybe she's just thinking, look, it's legal, it's expected, and me perpetuating this online isn't the problem. And maybe she's right. I know, like, I'm not saying the sudden availability of merchandise that's all about like wine moms and stuff, that's not what's causing the soaring rates of alcohol abuse in women. But it's very obvious that something about the messaging that mommy needs a drink after a really tough day, that's being absorbed by very vulnerable women who are being targeted by really gross marketing. You know it, and even if you don't think you know it, you know it. Like the pink beer cans that are like less calories because everybody needs and wants to be slim, right? The glittery pastel quarantinis, like the cocktails people were drinking during lockdowns when women's alcohol abuse absolutely skyrocketed because they were stuck at home homeschooling their children while trying to work. This marketing isn't only patronizing, it's incredibly damaging. Like, you can Google this stuff. There's a rise in us dying from alcohol related causes, a rise in visits to emergency departments by women that are alcohol related. We all know, or like we should know, that alcohol, it's a depressant, like it exacerbates anxiety, yet people are still getting sucked into this thing that's not actually helping. It's actually making things worse. I cannot even imagine trying to deal with motherhood hungover regularly. Oh my God. And yet, alcohol is the one drug you have to explain not using. Like, you might be watching this thinking, I'm the weird one. Honestly, lads, I'm so glad I stopped drinking before I had children. Because if I didn't stop before I had kids, I genuinely think that I would have been using all this to like totally justify my drinking. I would have been one of the mothers posting the cringy wine mom videos on TikTok. I would have been her. But before we move on to how triggered I am by all of this, I want to introduce today's video sponsor, which is BetterHelp. If something like alcohol is interfering with your happiness or preventing you from reaching your goals, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in such a different way, even if you don't have a clinical mental health issue. Every single one of us experiences hard times. We're all probably going through something right now. And I personally believe, I've always believed that everyone can benefit from speaking to someone who's unbiased. Therapy is one of the main tools in my sobriety toolbox, I suppose you'd call it. And the reason I love BetterHelp so much is because their mission is to make therapy accessible. It's a platform that makes finding a therapist so easy because it's online, it's remote. All you have to do is fill out a few questions and then BetterHelp matches you with a credentialed therapist in as little as a few days. And because finding a therapist is a bit like finding a partner, it's a bit like dating. If you don't click with your therapist, when you're with BetterHelp, you can very easily swap. Find someone right for you. But yeah, I have a link for BetterHelp down in the description box. It'll get you a discount on your first month of therapy. So check that out. They support my channel. They're fantastic. I've used it on and off since 2020. And yeah, like at the moment, this whole, the end of a nice day, big glass of wine thing has been it's just so hard for me to navigate that right now. The whole culture of it, like I can't avoid it when I go online. It's just everywhere when I go through reels on Instagram, in vlogs on YouTube, group chats I'm in. I'm very lucky to have some mom friends who, well, it's not that they don't drink, they don't ask to drink when I'm around at least, which I really appreciate. But I do find that because I'm sober, I'm not pursuing new friendships in the way that I probably should be and trying to connect with other mothers locally because I get so triggered. I'm like, how do I define triggered? See, that word, I don't really usually like that word actually. I'm just gonna get my novel Glass Houses because this had like trigger warnings in it and some of you guys were really glad that I included those. Please note that this book explores subjects such as suicide, eating disorders, self-harm, bereavement, and revenge porn, which may be upsetting to some readers. There's a lot of mental healthy stuff. It's actually very focused on a certain type of therapy. However, I kind of regret adding that to this book. Harvard recently found through research that trigger warnings actually make people more anxious. And you know, when you think about it, it's like if the topic of suicide makes you feel triggered, reading the word just right out there off the bat immediately is a bit, you know, whereas when you're reading it, you're kind of like, oh, I think this thing is going to happen. I'm going to stop maybe reading, you know? So I have a bit funny feelings on trigger warnings. But yeah, the word triggered, I would use the word triggered here because what I mean when I say I get triggered by wine mom culture is that it does feel like a trigger getting pressed and me getting this immediate overwhelming urge to have a drink, to have that feeling that I do really miss of like taking the edge off after a few mouthfuls of wine that you get, like not even being tipsy, just like, you know it if you drink. And there's this little monster in my head. He lives in there rent free and he'll tell me, you know, oh, if you have a drink after the kids go to bed, you're going to feel amazing. If you have a drink, you're going to feel a kind of relaxation that nothing else can give you. Only a drink, not a bath, not a walk, not a bit of music, not a massage, nothing. Only a drink can give you this feeling. You'll even sleep better. You'll be less moody. I don't hear that little monster voice all the time, but I do. It just starts chatting at me when I see the kind of societal messaging that like drinking makes life as a parent easier and better. What mothers need is not wine. What we need is support, better support. And as I've discovered, it's unfortunately very hard to ask for support. Like I do ask for it now, and thank goodness I have a couple of people I can really rely on. My dad my mother-in-law are fantastic, but I find it really hard to ask for, because you're made to feel like you're a failure for not being able to manage every single thing yourself. You're just not good enough because all these other people are doing without any support when they shouldn't have to. But it's not just that it's hard to ask for, it's that there's limited support available. I'm sure you've noticed, but especially if you've small kids, but like everyone who could help and support you for free, like friends and family, are wrapped up with their own work and kids. Of course they are. And then all of the support that you could pay for, it costs so much money. It costs as much as all of your bills. And good childcare as well can be hard to come by, like trusting someone with your kids, oh my god. Or like even if you want a cleaner, like to trust someone to come into your home and like go through your knickers that have to be washed. Like what mothers need is not more crap to buy, like the t-shirts and the mugs and the baby grows, all the wine o'clock stuff and all the drink as well. It's more paid leave from work, universal health care if you don't have that where you live, childcare, tax credits. But obviously to overhaul our entire system is a lot more complex and messy, and not as simple as the cheap solution of the bottle of wine that's only a tenner at the corner shop. If you're there, you might really benefit from the CAGE assessment for like problem drinking. So it's really easy. It's 4 questions. 1, have you ever felt you should cut down on your drinking? 2, have people annoyed you by criticizing your drinking? 3, have you ever felt bad or guilty about your drinking? 4, have you ever had a drink first thing in the morning to steady your nerves or get over a hangover? If you answer yes to 2 or more of those, you should seek out a therapist and talk about it. I answered yes to 3 of those. It's interesting, none of the questions are how often do you drink? How much do you drink in a week? It is really interesting. I did mention therapy, but that's like the main thing that helps me to deal with the whole triggered feeling, I guess. And I'm regularly reminded through chats with my therapist that my family's health is my biggest desire, and ultimately my kids, my family would bear the brunt of me being all messed up on drink. If I cave to the pressure to have the odd drink at night, it will impact my children, like it will. The last thing in the world that I want is for them to absorb the message that I need to drink because they're so difficult. Like I need to drink because of them. I also know how much they mimic us as their parents, and I don't want to teach them that drinking is the way to deal with life stress, because it's not, but like that's what they'll grow up thinking. And it's time to break the generational cycle. And I think Gen Z are very much more on this than us millennials. And I hope that it keeps going in that direction with more and more people embracing sober living, like alcohol-free lifestyles. And I've talked to my therapist about other like healthier coping mechanisms, like just talking to other mums who don't drink, journaling before bed, just asking my husband, even when he's wrecked from work, asking him on his days off, look, take the kids, I need a guilt-free nap. Getting good sleep dramatically improves my mental health, makes me less of a dragon around my kids. And like we need that support starting from the day we give birth, teaching us about putting your kid in a beautiful nursery in a different room in your house is not necessarily going to help you to maximize your sleep, because you have to parent through the night for probably the first couple of years of that child's life. Yeah, there's just so much stuff we're not taught, and we're just handed the baby and expected to just figure it out. Like, teach us this stuff in schools, lads. Teach us in schools. Have one day of classes that will help us figure this out. Therapy definitely does help me to deal with situations where there's like other mothers and drink around. And yeah, I've been just, doing stuff like bringing a nice drink along, or like gravitating towards the other non-drinkers there. The most important thing my therapist has taught me though is that I should still be there for other drinking mothers that I know. Yeah, just because I don't drink, I don't need to completely remove myself from their lives. And like very likely they're looking for connection when they're wanting to get together and have a drink. Yeah, I'd love to read your thoughts in a comment. And if anything I talked about in this video has affected you, I've linked resources in the description box that should help, including my link to therapy. If that interests you, thank you so much, BetterHelp, for working with me again on this video. And yeah, if anything, I just hope I've gotten some of you thinking, and maybe you'll be on the lookout for the marketers. Yeah, not all marketing is gross. Right, we're gonna do the weird video ending. Hawimbawe, 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 hawimbawe.